I'm delighted to be joined again. I'm just going to repeat their names. Dr. Brendan Commane, who's a PhD student at the Royal College of Art in London. I've got Dr. Kat Algar-Skaife, who's a research fellow from Bangor University, and our very first professor of the day who passed the test of making the technology work. We've got Professor Marion Lynch, who's a visiting professor of dementia care at the University of West London. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Morning.
Good morning. Well done, Adam. You're doing a great job. I'm exhausted already. I don't know how you're going to do 12 hours.
I'm starting to feel slightly guilty that some of these subjects deserve much longer than 5 and 10 minutes conversations. We could have gone on for 24 hours, I'm sure, but thank you, Kat. That's very kind of you.
Thank you for organising it, Adam. It's brilliant.
That's very kind of you to say. You'll have me crying. We're going to talk about the role of art and technology, and this was, some of my other groupings of people were a bit tricky because, when you saw Kellen earlier, for example, talking about functional objects and end of life, that didn't quite fit. But this was a really easy one because you all, in your bios, you all came back and said, yeah, art, we do art. So maybe, Brendan, just don't talk about your work yet. Could I just ask you to introduce yourself and maybe what your PhD is? Tell us about your job.
Thank you. So I'm a PhD researcher, just starting my second year part-time at the Royal College of Art. I'm based in the School of Design. My PhD is both thesis and practice, so it's a bit of both, with an emphasis on design. It's human-centered design, which helps develop a deep and sort of understanding of the issues that people are facing, so you can be more focused on what they need. And obviously, in my case, it's the environment in care homes for people with dementia.
So this is designing better environments so people have a better experience of living there.
Yeah, better, more engaging environments, I guess, and environments.
So not practical, as in you should put a wall there and a door there and make sure the windows.
No. That is really important as well, but that's not where I'm sort of going.
Is it Stirling University do lots on that, or physical environment, don't they? Thank you, Brendan. Kat, could I ask you to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dr. Kat Algar-Skaife. I'm a research fellow at Bangor University. I've been a dementia care researcher for about 11 years now. First came into contact with Adam because together we brought joint dementia research to Wales. So one of my hats is coordinating JDR in Wales. But kind of my main research interest is around the role of the arts for improving and supporting lives for people living with dementia, and also those who support them both professionally and informally. I could talk forever about it, so I think I will stop there. But yeah, I have quite a few hats, but really excited to be here.
Brilliant.
Hello, I'm Marion Lynch. My initial research as part of this was how do we use poetry and prose to teach medicine? And from that, which I finished a decade ago now, oh my goodness, started to recognise that clinicians start to get a bit of panic about art or the arts. They say, oh, I haven't got an A-level in English, or, I could never draw, and all of these things. And there's a currency there that seems alien to them, whereas in fact it's nothing to do with that at all. And what I noticed in my research was when I used work from people living with dementia, which then started to become part of the curricula for general practice, people started to be able to equate what they saw with some of the thoughts they had about the utility of people. Like I say, that was 10 years ago. I've moved on since then, and now I'm looking at how we construct even the thinking of the design of healthcare, or even the legal system in relation to dementia.
Well, Well, I'm tempted to stick with you because you've got me interested now. Rather than go back round the circle, I'm tempted to stick with you now because you've got me interested. So to start with, I think the initial work about teaching medicine through those mechanisms sounds interesting. You could see how that could adapt. So how has it moved on now then? What?
Well, I started it almost 2 decades ago, and I was a nurse. I am a nurse. You never lose being a nurse. I'm a nurse. I was working as one of the first medical educators in the UK. So I was bringing a sort of person-centered lens and nursing lens to the world that was particularly biomedical. And in order to have something that was neither nursing nor doctoring, I started to think, okay, what is neither? And what was neither was the arts. But there was a lot of interest in medical humanities, but not enough to fund a PhD or to get any kind of traction in conversations. So it was an uphill struggle. So my title was Challenging the Epistemological Basis of Medical Education. How do GP trainers use poetry and prose to teach? For those of you who've done PhDs, you absolutely know I can only say it like that because I've been completely socialized to not be able to deconstruct it at all. That's the title. And what was wonderful from it was when I started to move into dementia, which was my clinical area. I was working with some art that Mrs. Margaret Drake had done. Mrs. Margaret Drake was a lace maker, and her beautiful lace collar was shown by her husband, and he said he saw a flaw in it that the clinicians didn't see. And what surprised him was she didn't see it. And that was the diagnostic, this missed stitch, rather than a mini mental state or something. And her work continued throughout her journey in dementia and became changed. And what I did then was worked with him and the photographs he'd taken of her work and showed them as the journey through dementia, getting clinicians to comment on it and then explore what their comments meant. And what we saw was the diametrically opposed views of it. Clinicians usually saw something that had become childlike, less simple, etc. The family and others saw engaged in an activity, the person's identity still continuing, valuing the time. And so there was real interest to be able to show just through these artifacts the different lens that we took on what it is to be a human living with dementia. That work then became part of the GP training nationally as part of the curriculum to teach holistic domain, because one can only understand a holistic person and that kind of lens if you remove yourself from the language and the constructs that you've been socialized in medicine.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, doesn't it? I don't know how is that similar to you, Kat? I'm thinking about how you've done that in your work as well, because that sounds very similar.
Yeah, so actually I was going to talk about an artist residency project, but actually you've reminded the first project that I led after my PhD was called Creative Conversations, and that was developing an arts-based staff development program for care home residents, for care home staff. So we were using the arts to help staff understand the experiences of people living with dementia, and staff felt that this really helped them understand. So we were using music, film, poetry, lots about the topic of dementia, but also by people living with dementia. So yeah, I'm really going to go and look at your work, Marion, because it links very well. I've been looking at some of the sort of medical education stuff as well. So that's kind of one side. but also I've been working with Cartrevi project, which is led by Age Cymru, and it's an art in care homes project where professional artists are leading residencies within care homes across Wales. And I've been the research partner for, well, since it started in 2015. So I've been able to really help progress some of and look more in depth at some of the things going on. So the first evaluation showed significant improvements in well-being for the residents, but also for the staff who were supporting sessions, helped them understand their residents much better. Again, as you were saying, showing that residents were much more able than staff first thought, but also it encouraged care staff to engage creatively themselves outside of work. I've moved on to do a social return on investment for the project as well, to try and get more evidence, because although we've got some amazing results, the first evaluation involved 122 care homes, so we had some really big numbers involved. Yeah, I was for the most part, I was the only researcher.
Because care home staff change all the time, and you did you physically go to all those?
No, so that was a challenge actually, because my PhD, I was in care homes doing observations, and I really got ingrained, whereas for this I was having to ask artist practitioners to help do data collection as well as care staff. So that was very different, but I love this project because I've been with it for so long, and we're now moving forward. I've got a master's student who started today actually. She's actually one of the Cartrevi artists who is now looking at how we can look at embedding the approach within social care, because it's been funded now for 6 years, which is amazing, but that's not going to continue. So we're now looking at it a bit more strategically of how we can look to embedding it.
But the financial side of this is important, isn't it? Because I think that is, for me, is often something that's slightly overlooked from some of the research that we've talked about already today, and I think we'll go on to look at, is that when you publish those findings, coming with a balance sheet that also says, right, and this is because, let's face it, governments are often bothered about the bottom line, and if you're persuading the NHS to invest in, or local authorities or the government to invest in something, being able to demonstrate the value and what it will cost to really do the investment required is something that's needed and shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be right there, for me, right there up front. And even if that means bringing in some expertise from external people who are accountants and cost specialists. We're going to be talking to Martin Knapp, who's an economist, later today from the London School of Economics, about the financial aspects of it. So has that been tricky? And Marion, coming back to you, is that something you've had to look at as well? Is the cost, the cost proposals of this? What does it cost to do to help sell it? Well, sorry, I'll let Kat, you go first. No, go on,
as I said, I decided to, because I had a huge data set, I actually did a retrospective social care on investment, and I apologise, my dog is snoring in the background, because I felt like we had this amazing result, but everyone was like, well, that's lovely, but it didn't feel like it was making the right impact. So adding that social return on investment hopefully will speak another language and add onto the current evidence that we've got.
And you make a good point. It's got to be thought of as return on investment, because of course because the value isn't necessarily that it saves 3 hours of staff time in agitation, and so that as a cost, a pound sign against it, it's selling that well-being. Sorry, Marion, I'm going to come back to you. Can you even?
Yeah, so return on investment, we really need to look at what kind of return are we looking at? So when we look at the arts, we talk about this being the fifth wave of public health. Firstly, we've had we sorted the water, we sorted the sewage, we've had vaccinations, then we did healthcare information, don't smoke, do running, etc. We're in the fifth wave now, which is showing that telling people what to do doesn't work. And this fifth wave helps us relate back to 2000 years ago, when we really started to look at when health was integrated into all of society, what's right, what's good, what's true. And those three elements, therefore, are needed if we're going to look at return on investment. So what's the right thing to do? The moral imperative in terms of care for people with dementia. What's true? So the evidence base behind things. We get, not everything is an RCT in terms of dementia, and this is where the evidence base that we're talking about, return on investment, looks at. What's beautiful? That's the other one. What's right, what's good, what's true, what's good, what's beautiful. And the arts element is this aesthetic element is now what's coming into society. And we're building on that in terms of the way we look at climate change, we look at human geography, the way we look at other areas. What we're missing out is how we look at it in terms of health. We still have that biomedical model. So these are high-ranging concepts and thoughts, but actually we have to also look beyond the gross domestic product of health. It's not about the utility of the person. We need a social model of health as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's it. Well, and it's great that this is even being looked at. Brendan, I have got to come to you now because
Okay.
you're kind of still at the early stage of your career.
I am very much at the early stage.
You've been an art teacher. For anybody who wants to know, profiles on all of our speakers are on the website, and please do remember you can ask questions. If you post them now, I should have a chance to get to them before the end. So you were an art teacher before, and now you've come to your PhD. Tell us about your PhD project.
So my PhD project is looking at three key areas. It's looking at technology. It's looking at a soft textile item, which could be a blanket, a toy, a teddy bear. And it's looking at the visual environment. So what I'm trying to do is integrate those three things together. So I'm thinking about having sensors running through the soft textile item, which creates projections within the environment. And those projections will be come through from a very collaborative based research with family members, carers, obviously the residents, because they're the expertise on their own condition. So yeah, and there'll be, from my point of view, I'll be running those art-based workshops as a co-researcher. I'll also be doing observations, discussions, questionnaires, and a lot of storytelling. When I did my MA, I did that with the carers of people who had lived with dementia, mostly husbands and wives, and the arts-based sort of research brought out lots of really interesting stories and facts, and I could see lots of overlaps and commonalities which everyone was going through as a carer as well. And I think you get a lot of information through that process of doing and participating in a very practical thing.
You should catch up with Kat, because Kat might know a few care homes.
Yes, that'd be great.
So we earlier on we talked about this being about art, and I think we've talked a little bit about how art is providing some practical assistance, not only in terms of something to occupy the mind or something beautiful to hang around the, to fill your life and space with, but also it has the practical applications in terms of the reducing agitation in residents, it seemed to do. And it's helped certainly in care homes. I think, I don't know if, because there was a push, wasn't there, Kat? I guess probably 10 years ago now, that the idea of giving care home residents antipsychotic drugs and people who kind of were perceived as being rabble rousers, you know, kind of got sat in chairs, and this is all the push since then has been to try and make particularly nursing homes and care homes better places to be, that do have activities, that are nice places to be, and that have these, and you deal with that agitation in other ways. And that's what your research is kind of proving, and working with the resident artists sounds fascinating. But I wanted to bring everybody now back to technology. So this was talking about technology was in here as well. I don't who had technology in there. Why did I put technology? Somebody had technology in their bios that made me add that to the title. Is it Kat? Kat, you've got technology in yours.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I know of some great projects that combine technology, the use of technology in the arts.
Oh no, Brendan! It's Brendan using technology.
Me.
Come on, Brendan. How are you using technology?
Like I said, it's really a case of putting sensors through a soft textile item which creates projections into a space. And I want the resident to actually have that control through that soft textile item to choose what visuals they want in a space. So I'll be researching things like visuals of reminiscence, of nature, of landscapes, and looking at what actually makes them engaged and feel comfortable and at ease. And yeah, so
that makes sense. And you can see how technology has moved on. I've seen, I don't know if you've seen recently, but using projections onto tables that project things that you can then interact with, pictures and moving images. And I guess, Marion, in thinking about poetry and language and the written word, technology's help. That dictation software has come on so rapidly to allow people's what they say to appear on a screen. Is that something you've made use of?
What I have made use of in technology and through the teaching, because I teach on the MSc for dementia, is the concept of robots as carers, or pieces of what looks like human body but isn't human body, as a way of something to calm people down. And I was particularly disturbed by my own reaction when I met Pepper, who is the robotic robot that I met it in Japan, and it's the robot that provides care in care homes. There's many of them around, and I thought it was going to be like talking to my laptop, and it wasn't. I actually did suddenly create a different kind of relationship, and I was astounded because it was just like my laptop, but it wasn't. It was talking back to me, and all I was playing was noughts and crosses, but I connected, and I was quite shocked about that. And the other technology which disturbed most of my students was something, it's called Nadine, and it looks like a human arm. It's a hand that and the skin, the way it's phrased is the skin feels quite lifelike, and it looks like an arm, and it's placed in a chair or a sitting area or a bed with somebody, so they feel as if they're holding someone's hand. And that concept creates many issues, because if you don't have enough humans to provide the care, how do we provide the care using technology? Not the narratives and everything, but a piece of arm or a product that creates a connection.
A disembodied arm. That sounds. I don't know. I'm waking up in bed with a disembodied arm could be quite.
Yeah. Well, and that's again. There's the lens. That's what we see. What the person living with dementia feels and has is a hand to hold. Yeah. So who are we to say that this is wrong? Because we can't have a person sitting there.
Well, I mean, it is, whether it's about art. I mean, I can see, and I haven't seen many examples of this, but the FTD people, I think, talking to later, might use is making more use of virtual reality, of course, which is coming in more now to kind of fill those those spaces, because you can put on the gloves, can't you? And I've seen these. You can put the gloves on, you can put the thing on, and this isn't just something from a sci-fi Ready Player One movie. You can squeeze something and get the haptic response back that makes you feel like you're doing these things.
Absolutely.
The other side of me is going to argue, though, that is that just tricking your, is that tricking the brain into rather than living with the issue that this is something I don't know. Moral question.
Well, so let's move. And there's the moral. Is it right? Is it true? Is it good? There's the elements that we need to look at. So when I was working on visual, this reality with Flix Films, who are based at Trinity Hospice, the work that they were doing showed that when people who had actual neurological damage, which meant they could not move their legs, whilst they were skiing in this virtual reality, they were automatically engaging their core. So that's manipulation, and that's tricking. We have a moral judgment that that's okay, yet what we're doing with people living with dementia isn't. And that's why I think all the elements in how we look at dementia need to go beyond a biomedical model or a social thinking, and really start to think, what is it? Why do we have an issue with doing something that tricks the body from a skiing accident, but not
absolutely
with,
right.
with someone?
Be slightly more open-minded on this. We're coming up to the end of our last. Well, that's it. We're out of time. We haven't had any questions for you guys, but I think that's because you've explained your work so eloquently and concisely as well. I think you're all on Twitter. If anybody is interested in knowing more about Kat's work with resident artists and sharing and across this care home activity, or Brendan's PhD project, if any care homes in London are tuning in and interested to get involved, I'm sure Brendan's very receptive, and Marion as well. You're online. Oh, look, we've got somebody with a t-shirt. Thank you very much, Professor Marion Lynch, Dr. Kat Algar-Skaife, and Brendan Commane for joining us in the last half an hour to talk about your work. It's really great. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.